Hello and welcome back to the Ignite Your Heart Masterclass. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Amanda May. She is manifestation coach among business coach and so many other talents. But I want to open up the floor to you, Amanda, for you to introduce yourself and tell us more about what you do.
Hello, Nikki. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. I am a spiritual teacher and embodiment guide. That's what I'm calling myself right now. I feel like I call myself something different every other year or every year maybe. And really my whole practice encompasses spirituality, so that's kind of what I usually fall back on. And I guide women along their spiritual journey, their entrepreneurial journey, and their manifestation journey. And usually these things intertwine and intersect. And it's been a beautiful journey. I've been a coach for about the last 5 years. I really jumped back into my business full time last year, about a year and a half ago now. And ever since, it's just been taking off. I am the CEO of the Manifesting Miracle Worker brand, and it's a beautiful community. I love what I do every single day. And I finally fell into this after opening myself up to discover my purpose all these years and years and years ago. And I feel like I'm finally here.
Wow, that's so beautiful to hear. And I know there's so many successful women tuning in right now. So not only are you speaking to us in a business sense, an entrepreneur sense, in the deeper soul purpose sense, but today I'm bringing you in specifically for the realm of love and how you manifested your soulmate, because I'm so curious.
So this is okay, where do I begin? Now, I got into manifestation, it's been over 15 years ago now. And I had gotten into manifestation because I needed money at the time. I come from a background of addiction, and during that time of my life, it was in between college and it's right after college or right at the tail end of college. I just had nothing going for myself. I felt super lost. I remember years before that, I had wiped out my whole entire bank account because of drugs and my addiction. And at the time, I was just like, I don't know what to do with myself, but I need to make money. I want to make money. I don't know how to make money. And what happened was I did a simple Google search. I talk about this all the time, the magical Google search. And it was how to make money or how to make money now or something like that, or how to make money fast. And it led me to manifestation. I'm like, money manifestation. That sounds cool. And that's really what started the journey of manifestation. It was like all of a sudden I was just taken down this rabbit hole. It was like I was reawakened. My soul was reawakened to everything I had already known. It pulled me in like nothing I had ever learned about or read about. I've always been into like esoteric topics. I loved ghosts. I loved aliens. Like I always loved the weird and the strange. And this was just kind of like, wow, like this is how the world works. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I dove in head first, and I would say maybe a few years into my manifestation journey, I really started to think starting I really started to think about love on a greater scale. Not just, manifest a partner. I really wanted to manifest my soulmate, someone to spend my life with. I had been through healing my addiction troubles, trauma. I had been through a lot, and at that point I felt like I was ready. I felt like I was finally ready to really share my life with another person. So I decided I was going to manifest my soulmate. And the thing about it is, and this is also why I brought up the money piece, why I was manifesting money. Money manifestation was always kind of difficult for me because it was always something that I needed. I wanted it right now. I need it now. Even in my business, it's not working out, but I want it to work out now. And when we are creating something from that needy energy, we just repel because all we're really manifesting is more of that needy energy. But when I chose to manifest my soulmate, it was almost like it was just having fun. I'm like, let's see if this works. I had no time frame on it. There was no needy energy going into it. I was just really being curious about it. And I actually did speak to one of my manifestation coaches back then. And she told me I should do the same practices that I did for manifesting money and everything else. And my major practice was this thing we call scripting, which is basically writing about your desired reality as if you already have it. So I started scripting about my soulmate. I wrote down, I made a list. My list had to have been 10 pages. It's in one of my journals. I keep saying every time I talk about this story, I got to go find this journal. It's in one of my journals, but I made a list that was like, it was like 10 pages long of every attribute I wanted my soulmate to have. And not a couple years later, maybe it was like a year or so later, I met this guy who he was actually a cousin of one of my friends who I went to school with. So we just happened to meet and we hit it off instantly. And then we kind of fell off a little bit. Like we just stopped talking. We kind of lost contact for maybe like 6 months or so. And then we got back into contact and like things were just really not like intense, but intense in a good way. And it wasn't really I didn't realize I had manifested him outright at first. Because again, I wasn't like really thinking about it. I was doing this fun thing on the side. Let me see if this works. But as the relationship blossomed and as the years went on, we've been together for 10 years now. As the years went on, I just these things come up and things keep coming up. Even like recently, things will keep coming up that I'm like, "Oh my god, that was on my list." Like, all of these things about him were on my list. It's just amazing, and the other thing is I had no even though I had a list of attributes for him, I had no heaviness around what he would look like or maybe where he would be from or it was like I just really kept things open ended and I allowed him to come to me. So it's funny that I'm talking about this because I don't really talk about this. Like even I mention it sometimes. I've never really talked about this before. This is pretty much the first time on a full level like that. Yeah.
But something you've mentioned really stands out. It's always when you're not like operating out of that needy energy that it comes to you easily. Um, and this goes back to some of the healing work too, right? Because the healing work comes from scarcity or like fear. And because we have this fear or preconceived notion or limiting ideas, that's where the fear comes from. And then when you're operating out of that state, you're like, oh, well, I need this person to fulfill that, to help me feel loved or to help me feel validated or to help me create my life. I used to have this thing where I was like, I want my partner to be the exact like same as me, ambitious, and like we would take over the world together and we would build a business together and we would do everything together, right? Like it was that like romanticized idea of what a relationship would look like. And then now after the healing, I realized, oh, those were all of my unfulfilled needs that I was projecting onto somebody else. And that's what I was trying to call in. And that wasn't necessarily what worked for me. And then I took a moment and I sat down and I looked at all the qualities I did want from a healed, complete, whole space. And I realized, well, I don't need him to do that for me. I don't need him to own a business and like be entrepreneurial like I am or like all the same things that I do. I enjoy it for the company and how he made me feel safe. And so I would love to know, like, what were some of the attributes that you were writing down, right? Because sometimes we have this ginormous list of stuff and we think the perfect person has to meet every single one.
Mhm.
You're saying, yes, he's actually meeting them, but I would love to know, like, what are you writing down, right? Are we writing down the wrong things for what we want to manifest because it's not coming?
So it's funny because he's meeting pretty much all of them as far as I remember, because I still haven't found this journal that I know exists somewhere. But a lot of the things that I was writing down, it was just like what you were saying. Like he makes me feel safe. He loves me. I would never have to think about him cheating on me. I said it in a different way, of course, but like things like that, like feelings. Um, there were also different different attributes, like he was into spirituality, but not super spiritual. 'Cause I didn't want him to be super spiritual, but he really understands these things and how the world works. He overcame challenges in his life. He's really strong, right? Things that are kind of open-ended. One thing that I thought was really interesting, or really funny, I did write that he loves my favorite band, which is Tool. And like this was back 10 years ago. Like still my favorite band. I freaking love Tool. But he was never into that music, like metal, like none of that. He was into R&B, like he listened to like R&B music. And then I took him, well, I had him listen to Tool in the car, and then I took him to a Tool show, fell in love with them. Fell in love. I mean, they're amazing, but like fell in love with them. He won't listen to any of my other metal music, but he listens to that, you know? So it's like little things like that that were just like peppered in there. Another, this might be crazy, but why not? Let's go for it. Okay. So I love the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know if you know the show. Okay. So in Buffy, the character Spike like really loves Buffy. Like there were some questionable moments in that show, but like at the end, like he just loves her so much more than anything. And like he was like the bad boy kind of because he like overcame some stuff. So I had like some attributes of that written down. I even did a TikTok video about that. And in the TikTok video, I was saying if you want to model your person, your special person after somebody, right? Almost like as an expander, maybe a famous person or a character. I just had fun with it. I think that's really when I look back on my most successful manifestations throughout the years, it was always when I was having a lot of fun and I wasn't putting heavy energy into it. I wasn't putting needy energy into it. And it was more like, let's see if this works. Like kind of like tuning into my higher self, right? My higher self is already confident on her own. My higher self is already abundant on her own. She knows she's amazing. She's doing her thing in the world, you know, and she knows that she's worthy of love. So let's just kind of put the feelers out there and see what comes, you know? And it just it's weird that it worked out the way that it did. And again, it's not like it's not like the day I met him, I'm like, oh, I manifested him. Like it was over the years I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, you know, it's like not everything on the list, but a lot of them, a little
That
crazy.
actually corresponds so much to what some of the experts have said before too, because not in terms of manifestation, but also like how a relationship develops over time. It's not like that quick and fast chemistry, fall in love, like super high powered development. It's actually a slow burn. It's almost like you have to become their friend first. You have to get to know them. Are their values in alignment with you? What do they like? What do they do? Um, who are they, right? You don't want somebody who's rude to the waiter, but like pretending to be nice to you, right? And so it's like getting to know them over time because you're not in it with all the chemistry, getting a brain fog and like bombarded with all the good feeling chemicals that you overlook all the red flags. You're actually getting to understand them and how you feel with them and do you like the same things and what is it like when you go on a date?
Yep. On a deeper level. And it's amazing that you said that too, because we were friends first. When
Mhm.
we had first really met, especially those first 6 months, we became friends. Then when we reconnected, we did things together. We became close friends. We were actually like hanging out in a group of friends. And that's how it progressed. And then over the years, it progressed even more. And then, one thing that I have to say is you learn so much about the other person as time goes on. And
Yes.
things are not going to be perfect. Like things will never be perfect. We live in a world of duality. That means there's going to be dark, there's going to be light, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. And it's all about working through the tough moments together and respecting one another, of course, respecting one another, but learning with each tough moment, learning more about yourself and learning more about each other. And I think that really helped me so much because maybe, at certain points I might have felt like especially early on when we were still really getting to know each other's energy and each other's patterns. And like, if we would argue or if we would have a disagreement, I would be like, oh, well, maybe this isn't meant to be. Maybe this isn't, no, 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 maybe this isn't meant to be. But over time, like, we don't really argue at all anymore. We have disagreements and like, we annoy each other, of course, but like, we don't have like clashes. And at the beginning, there were a few clashes, but we learned so much about each other through those clashes, about how each other processes things, about how we handle things individually, because we are still individuals. But when you're creating something together with somebody, it's not really about compromise. I mean, I guess a little bit, but I hate the word compromise sometimes. It's really about just learning each other's energy and how you move through life, right? As your own individual people.
Like a real partnership, like
Yeah,
cooperation, right? Like when
yeah,
you're in a team, you can't be running to the finish line all by
yeah.
yourself, right? And so that's something really good that you brought up that we haven't talked about on the show just yet about maintaining long partnerships and how to work through the challenges and really being able to move through the challenges and not give up at the first sign of, oh, this is really difficult. And then saying that maybe it's not going to work out because you had a few quarrels here and there.
And I learned so much about myself too in these moments. I came from, again, my background was addiction, trauma. I had trauma in relationships. I never really had the relationship thing down, I always felt like they were very tumultuous. And with this, I just learned so much about myself, and I know he learned so much about himself too. We complement each other so well because, of course, I wrote down, we complement each other so well on my list. But at the same time, it's almost like little things that would have bothered me maybe in a previous relationship. I don't let it bother me. And I really don't let anything bother me in the relationship because I know that we're committed to one another. I know that we're a team. I've never have any doubt about that. And I think when we allow ourselves to have doubt creep in, a lot of times that's when things can kind of fall apart a little bit. Um, when you're in a strong connection, it's not to say that you will never have doubt, because you might, right? Of course you might. That's how, again, the world works, right? But I think that when you really make it a point to learn a lot about yourself through the process and learn a lot about the partner that you have, right? And really show up for each other, like that partnership. That could make a world of difference.
I love that so much. And just speaking into that a little bit and sharing a little bit of my personal story, like I was the one that needed to work on myself more than my husband did because when we met, like we met in middle school. So we've been together for a long time. But because he was my only relationship, I didn't know anything else. And my like understanding of love from my childhood was of like emotional neglect, or just because my parents didn't know how to emotionally regulate themselves, I didn't know how to emotionally regulate myself. I didn't get my emotional needs met. And so I developed like very anxious types of attachments that was very needy. I needed people to validate me all the time. And consistency on his end really supported me. I remember saying like, oh, I need you to call me at 9 o'clock every night so
Mhm.
that we could talk to each other. That was my like inner need for safety. And he was able to meet that. And then as I grew, like as I went off into like the real corporate world and started to interact with other people, that was when I had my like first reaction to somebody else that I was like, oh, I like this person. But I don't know why it was that chemical like attraction
Mhm.
connection. That
Mhm.
was the tumultuous relationship. And that relationship taught me this is what an unhealthy relationship feels like. It was that push and pull, but for some reason, there was always that, but I still want you, but you're neglecting me and I still want you. I don't know why. Right. And even though I had a healthy relationship that was consistent, stable, and safe, I needed to do the inner work on myself in order to recognize that this is the healthy relationship because my childhood never gave me what I needed. And so I was constantly seeking a repetitive pattern of not getting my needs met, but for some reason it felt good because that's what I thought love was, right? And my husband forgave me. Like I
Mm,
told him everything, what happened, and I had spent a whole year really like grieving my identity, not knowing if I wanted to stay in the marriage. We were having a kid on the way. Like it was bad. Like I was having like a horrible breakdown, and I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I want this relationship. And because I didn't want to be a burden, I pushed him away. But it was working through it and seeing how relationships can actually heal you as well, him
mm.
consistently showing up and saying, I'm committed to you, right? Like, I'm committed to you. I'm here. Like, you can take as much time as you need to heal, to explore, but I'm going to be here waiting for you to come back.
Wow.
And that was the moment that I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm running away from something so good.
What did you
I'm totally sabotaging my own relationship. And it forced me to look a little bit deeper. And I
Mhm.
started really, really like going into the healing work after that because I said that it's something within me that I have to heal first because I know this is good, but why am I not attracted to what is good for me?
Wow. I'm so listening to you. I'm just so amazed. Like the whole story, such a beautiful story. And thank you for sharing that with me. You know, that's the thing. It's like we are forced to look at the deeper layers. And if we are not, if we don't allow ourselves to heal and we don't allow ourselves, if we don't really give ourselves that gift, right? Because healing is a gift, we might shrug it off. We might just continue on, go on to the next one, then the pattern's gonna come up again. And then we're gonna think, well, this is just how it is, or there's something wrong with me, right? Because we need to heal, or we never need to do anything, but because we're being called to heal, right? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It means that we are being initiated into something greater, something deeper. And the more we heal, the more in line and in tune we come with the divine part of us, our higher self, because
Mhm.
we're taking away these layers that are kind of standing in the way, and they show up in all aspects of our life: love and relationships, business and finances, relationships with your friends and family and community and whatever. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey, but it's amazing because we realize how we have been operating on certain programming. And your story, I relate to so much of it myself. Seeking outside of myself for validation, that came up in my business too, even as early as a year ago, when I finally started to look at that. It was coming up, maybe not in my, because my current relationship, it's so different. He's also 15 years older than me, by the way. That is something that I wanted him to be older. I didn't know he was going to be that much older, but to me, that I think is a huge part of that stability for me, and that's really something that was great. I didn't know that it was going to appear as 15 years older. It but he did it. And but those codependency was coming up, but also that seeking outside external validation. And when it came up in my business about a year ago, I finally started to look at it. And that can come up very easily for anyone who is in business when we're posting on social media and we are waiting for likes and comments and DMs and engagement. I'm like, why am I thinking if something doesn't perform well, like a post wouldn't perform well, and I was making it mean something about me. And I remember even back in the day when I had different tumultuous relationships, I would make it mean something about me. I had a horrible relationship. My first relationship was in early college, and I ended up living with him, and it was bad. He was cheating on me. He would ignore me. We lived together, and he would leave and ignore me for like days on end. And I thought it was something wrong with me,
Right.
and of course there were different patterns coming up that I chose to heal after a long time later. But we also can't force people to show up the way we want them to show up, right? We all have our own healing we need to do too. But when we can find someone that we truly complement each other, who is in a similar space, that they do want to better themselves and have a beautiful thing with you, that's really why we're here, isn't it? Aren't we really here to experience love? Aren't
Mhm.
we really here to experience love and also experience love for ourselves and deep fulfillment and all the joys of life? And we deserve it. We all deserve it. But sometimes we do have to go a little deeper to look at the patterns that might be showing up. It never means anything about us. Doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. Just means we are being called to go deeper. Yeah.
That's really, really good too, because you can still experience patterns come up in your relationship, and they're always here to
Oh
like
yeah.
help you resolve that so that your relationship can become better. Um, you had mentioned like you wanted stability and you got stability, and now that you're in this relationship, do you, and this is way different than all your other tumultuous relationships, are there certain things that like that still come up now that maybe your partner supports you with or that you take accountability for?
Yeah, we can both be very fiery people, number 1. I'm an Aries, number 1. And he's a Virgo, so sometimes it can be some clashing, but it's like we learned each other over the years. We learned each other so well. Like things that used to bother me just don't bother me. Or some things I sometimes you got to choose to just zip it, like maybe just not entertain something. But if there's something that's really bothering me, which I don't really feel like nothing's ever really bothering me to my core, but he has been such a huge part of my healing journey too. He's been along for the ride, the whole entire thing. He's done a lot of work on himself. Um, just certain things. It's like one day at a time, and you kind of just have to learn how to ride the waves. Having a relationship doesn't mean things are going to be perfect. Having the life of your dreams and manifesting the life of your dreams or the business of your dreams doesn't mean everything's always going to be perfect. Like the goal is not to always be happy all the time or to have everything be perfect all the time. The goal is to really learn how to honor ourselves, our energies, and honor our partners in the same way.
Mm,
Go with the flow.
that absolutely makes sense because like we always talk about compatibility, but there's not every aspect's compatible, right?
Yep.
Like, so you said, oh, you can be fiery sometimes, and you own that, but he also understands, like, yeah, that's part of her personality. Like, I know how to work with that. And maybe he
Yes.
didn't know how to work with that at first, but then he learned how to work with it over time. The same with me. I look at my relationship, I'm like, I'm driven, I'm fast, like, I'm very fast. I like to do a bunch of things. My husband's so chill. He's like, relax. But then when I want him to come along for the ride and do something with me, he's like, oh, I'm really not in the mood. And I used to get really upset thinking, right? Because I had this conception that like everything needs to
Uh-huh.
be cohesive. And then I realized, oh no, but I didn't need to rely on him for that particular aspect. Like I understand he's more relaxed and this is how he enjoys life. And I'm just different, but I can find happiness in doing my own things and I can learn how to accommodate that. So we would do like activities that maybe both of us like that aren't so always so high paced, crazy, blah, 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 and more relaxing. And in the same way, like, oh, we can go on an adventure, go to the beach, go to the park and not always be like low key, stay at home and those things. So it's like you said, not compromise, but cooperation. We're learning how to cooperate.
Yes, not compromise, but cooperation. I love that. That's exactly it. And it's funny too, because I think when we stop trying to force an outcome a certain way or trying to force things to work a certain way or expect things to work a certain way, when we just surrender to not just to call our soulmate in or a specific person in, when we just surrender to the callings of life and the flow of life, and this goes with anything, this goes in your business, this goes in your wellness journey, whatever it may be, your spiritual journey, whatever it may be, when we kind of just like surrender and just like let things move, go with the flow, and learn how to again honor ourselves through the process. I keep going back to that because just showing up for yourself too, right? Because we could get so lost along the way. And that's another reason I over the years, especially from the tumultuous relationships, I never knew how to show up for me ever. Never. So when I finally learned how to do that, that's when I was able to open the doors to having such a beautiful relationship. I
Mhm.
really had to do that work on me first, and I had to learn how to love myself first. As cliche as it sounds, it's the truth. It really is. It really is.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being on here, for sharing this such a vulnerable part of your life with your partner and calling him this beautiful relationship in. And before we end today, I would love to share your free gift with the audience members. Would you be able to do that for us?
Yes, yes, of course. Now, is this the free tool or is this the audio series that I think I sent you something too?
Oh, yes. So
Okay.
first, well, you were talking about scripting, and I know you wanted to
Yeah,
teach
that's
a little bit about scripting. So I'm going to open up a few minutes for
okay.
that.
I was wondering, because this would be great. Now with scripting, like I was talking about before, scripting is my go-to manifestation process. It's my go-to spiritual process. And I have used scripting to manifest my soulmate. I use scripting with my clients. I use scripting for business success. And basically, this tool is writing out your desired reality as if it has already happened. So much like the way that I wrote out my desired soulmate and his attributes as if I already had him in my life. That's basically what scripting is. So it's instead of saying, I hope that I meet someone who does X, Y, and Z, it's I met someone who does X, Y, and Z. I am so excited about it. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God. Thank you, source. Thank you, angels, right? Put a lot of gratitude in it, a lot of thanks and a lot of gratitude. And you're just writing like you're in the moment and you're really envisioning your life being in that energetic frequency, that energetic space, because that reality, it's just a frequency. That's all it is. And you just need to learn how to get into the energy of the version of you who's already living in that reality, get into her vibrational frequency. And scripting is a beautiful way to really tap into that.
So, giving an example, would you also write, like, I had this beautiful date today with this
Yes.
person, and this is what we did?
Yes.
That's exactly how scripting is. It's like
Uh-huh.
you writing out the exact play by play of your experience
Yep.
as if you're living in it in this very moment.
Yes, and that's a perfect one. I had the most amazing date. I even got roses and they were the color red. I always say to put in the 5 senses. If you
Oh,
could put in the 5 senses, because that anchors you into that vision even more. Because we can all, you can kind of smell roses, right? Or smell flowers when you're writing about it, and then that anchors you into that whole entire vision. It's so powerful.
wow. Thank you so much for sharing that tool with us. And I know you had an audio series that you wanted to give to the audience members. I'd love to hear about that too.
Yeah, so this audio series it really describes my entrepreneurial journey and my healing journey over the last year, and basically my step-by-step process for quantum transformation, how I finally collapsed the gap going from where I was to where I wanted to be. And that's, in terms of self-love, success, abundance, and everything that I really wanted for a long time. And I felt stuck for a very long time. And I finally learned how to quantum leap. So my audio series really devotes a lot of time to that step-by-step processes. There's even journal prompts in it. It's really, really good. A lot of people love it.
Oh,
So I hope everyone likes it and enjoys listening to it.
I know for a fact that they will. And if anyone's interested in working with you, do you have a website that people can reach you at?
Yes, of course. My website is itsamandamay.com, itsamandamay.com. And I'm always on Instagram. So Instagram is at amanda.j.may.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda, for being here.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone, for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next masterclass.